Okay.
Perfect, Peter, yeah.
Yeah, everybody got that. Okay, so that's me. So what really today's about is for me, it's about a refocus that's needed within sales and management. So what do I mean by that? Let's take management first. I did a series of talks just before lockdown in 2019, 2020, and it kind of shocked me. I had over 200 individuals on 5 different talks, and they were all under the age of 35, all managers, and the most training they had was 30 minutes to be a manager. And the more I've looked into this, it seems to be that that's the case. Certainly that was my experience. When I turned to be a manager, it was because of the job I previously did. And then off you went, and you really weren't given any training. So there is a real need for new managers or people that are looking to move into management to have that kind of support, and it isn't that there. Similarly with sales, this is what Claire and I talked about, was what do we call the masterclass? So my experience is when I put sales in any kind of offer, it tends to not be looked at very well. So if I change that to a business growth or to something else, business development or something like that, suddenly people want to be on it. And the reason is quite simple, is we're all in sales. The challenge we've got is that we're all in sales, but most times we're a customer. And that sales experience is pretty awful at best. And the reason for that is that the salesperson doesn't seem to listen to you. And that's the one thing within sales is you need to listen. So it's the old adage of 2 ears and 1 mouth. Well, use it. So it's kind of that. So there does need to be a refocus. And just to leave this statistic with you, there is no university that I know of in the UK that focuses on sales. Not one. Also on the back of that, as a business owner, if you have 2 salespeople in front of you, really the only thing I can suggest to you is to go with your gut, because there is no globally recognized sales benchmark that you can use to qualify them. It's all done by Huthwaite, do their own stuff. Myers, Miller Hyman do theirs. Sandler do theirs. So they're all individual. That's a really important statement. Now that was given out by Professor Neil Rackham when I was invited along to his masterclass in 2016. And Neil is really very prevalent in sales. And he actually invented spin selling, which is one of the frameworks you can use within sales. Neil invented it. And he also had Huthwaite. So some of you may know of the Huthwaite sales training. Well, Neil was the founder of Huthwaite. And what he's saying is that how you sell will be more important than what you sell. And I agree with that 100%, because I've used the same sales process for 25 plus years. I think there's somebody got their mic on now, but I'm getting a lot of background noise. Anyway, I've used the same sales process for 25 plus years, and I've sold everything from tires and oil through to limousines and hearses through to IT. So it's not the product that you sell, but it's how you sell, and that's very prevalent within this. So, sales, what's it about? Well, if you don't understand people, then you don't understand business. It's as simple as that. And that's Simon Sinek talking about it. What tends to happen, and I've seen it so many times with sales, is they go in and try and sell you a product. But first of all, what we have to understand is we need to understand the people, and we need to understand the business themselves. So rather than going in and selling a product, the first thing that you could do is actually go in and ask some questions of the business owner and get to understand them and their business and what their challenges are. Now, that's a USP in sales, because I can tell you right now, 90% of sales companies or companies that I've worked with wouldn't do that. So if you're looking for a quick USP, there's one. Just go in and listen to your customers. Now, some of you may say, we do listen and we do that. That's fantastic. And we'll come on to that later on, because there'll be a couple of questions I might ask you, and it'll be interesting to get your answers to them. But that's something to go by, is if we don't start to understand the people, then we're not going to understand the business. How does everybody feel with that statement? Any questions on that? You can disagree, it's okay.
Peter, do you find smaller companies are more attentive to customers' needs than larger companies?
Well, Shane, that's a really good question. No, it all depends on who is running the business. So for instance, in smaller businesses, the entrepreneur, if you like, tends to seem to think that they know best what their customer wants. And it's a real challenge to actually say to them, but you can put a product out there, but how that product is refined is feedback from your customer, because it's the customer that uses your product. So as much as I would say it depends on what it is. So I've got some large organizations I work with that are really good at listening to customers, and others that are flaming awful. And similarly with smaller size businesses, it's the same. It depends on the management and their culture. So that's a really good question, Ian. The answer is it's horses for courses.
It's more what culture. People do with the. I suppose it's what the company does with the information that's given by the client. I suppose, you know, listening to them is one thing, doing something about it is something totally different.
Yeah, and it's also being brave enough to listen to the customer and to make changes based on that, because it is their baby, if you like, and they've taken it so far. So there is a challenge in that. And let me give you an example of what happens. We're very good in the UK of not offering feedback, because we think feedback is a good thing. Feedback was never invented to pat you on the back. There's one myth we'll blow out the water right now. Feedback was invented so that the next person who came along had a better experience than you did. That's what feedback is. And if we can't accept that, then there is a big challenge for us. So there's a constraint. I was on a webinar earlier on this week talking about theory of constraints. There's a massive constraint within business. If your feedback form isn't set up correctly in order for you to get the information that is real, then that's a big constraint on your business moving forward. You know, how many times have we gone into a restaurant and we've talked amongst ourselves, the food's come out and we've gone, it's okay, it's not too bad, it's not great. And then the waiter or waitress comes over and says, how's things? Yeah, fine, great, no problem. In the UK, that is done 99.9% of the time. The challenge we have then is that we just don't go back. Well, that's not really fair on the waiter or the waitress or that business, because they're asking for it. Now, whether they accept it or not is another thing, but they are asking for the feedback. And that's why we tend to not give feedback in a nice way, because we're not used to giving feedback. So there's the management style that we need to bring in is, how many times have we been brought up in front of managers and the feedback that we've been given hasn't necessarily been in a nice manner or in a manner that would be constructive. It's because that person feels anxious and stressed about offering the feedback. So we need to be more practiced at offering feedback, and we need to be more practiced at doing sales.
Okay.
Yeah. So it leads into, we need to understand ourselves. And this is where it's all about sales. I get a lot of people are stressed and anxious about sales, but they have a business and they need to run it. Sales is nothing more than you are the conduit between your office and the customer. If you go in and you recognize areas where you feel a bit stressed and a bit anxious, then if you know that and you can get away with not talking about that all the time, then do it. So understanding yourself, first of all, So as a business owner, what upsets you as a customer? Why do you then bring that into your business? So whatever upsets you as a customer, recognize that, and can you take the learnings from that and put that into your business so that those things tend to not happen? So as customers, what upsets us?
Poor service.
Yeah. And can you expand on that?
Lack of response to emails or communications.
Yeah. Follow up. Yeah. So I got headhunted 5 times last year. I had to follow up with the headhunter every time. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. If we're in 2021 and we're still showcasing Richard Branson's Virgin as the way how to deal with staff and customers, then we're doing something wrong. He did that back in the 80s and the 90s. We need to have up-to-date ones. Now, there's some good ones that my wife has got one of them. Mugu are fantastic. Mugu are absolutely fantastic. And there's a dental company in Ireland called Spotlight that she deals with too. They are unbelievable. Now, they're only doing common sense customer service, but the customer service they offer puts them so far ahead of the rest because the benchmark isn't high. So follow-ups one. Any other ones?
Hi everyone, Nula from South Africa.
Hi.
For me, it would be when you get something wrong and you don't recover well. You know, often when things go wrong is when you can actually make a really positive impression on a client. But if you don't recover well, you can epically fail in that relationship.
Good point. So that's a great point to make. So when we're talking within this business, the B2C and B2B are different. So B to customer and B to business have 2 different processes. Some of you on here will do a lot of business with other businesses. So that's classed as B2B. And that's a good point you make. If something's going to go wrong, it's always good to have had a face-to-face with that person at least once. Because then our human ability means that we have a better chance of recovering the situation. If we've only got this online relationship, then there is not the same amount of trust there, okay? And that comes back to understanding you. So that's a great point, and thank you for making that, Noella. We as human beings will decide 12 feet from somebody that we've never known whether to trust them or not to trust them. It's just something that's in our brain and it happens. And it doesn't get it right all the time. So how many of you were at university, and when you went to university in the first few weeks had a group of friends that after 6 months, that group of friends had changed drastically because over a period of time you'd actually got to know them and you recognized that maybe some of them weren't initially what you thought they were. So the more that we can have face-to-face meetings or face-to-face interactions, the more chance we have of recovering a situation where we've made a mistake. Yeah. So face-to-face with the pandemic, face-to-face is needed, maybe not as much as we did, but there's still a need for face-to-face, absolutely, to recover situations, totally. Totally. Is everybody okay with that? So understanding ourselves is understanding what is it that upsets us as a customer. Okay, if that upsets me, what is it I can put within my business that would help me not go down that route? Okay. Here's one. So I'm going to ask, who knows what an elevator pitch is?
Peter, can I ask something about that?
Yes.
So I always feel like a bit of a numpty, like actually saying an elevator pitch, because it can feel like too deliberate.
Depends what you, well, tell me what you think an elevator pitch is.
So I've learned it as like a 30-second pitch that gets the message across, like what you do, why you do it, and how you do it, like in a short space of time.
Basically, an elevator pitch is nothing more than telling them who you are, where you're from, and what you do. That's it. But it's nothing more. It's 20 to 30 seconds, and the reason it's elevator is because it was designed for going up in an elevator, because it was originally came out of the States. That's all it does. And the reason for that is that for some people who feel nervous going into a room of new individuals to meet them, then they have an elevator pitch that's something that they can do off pat. They've got it rehearsed. So that is me. I'm an introvert. I could quite happily go into a room of 200 people and go across and play on my phone in the corner of the room. Now, that wouldn't be very good for my business, or it wouldn't have been good for the companies I worked for in the past. So an elevator pitch for me is telling them who I am, where I'm from, and what I do. And that gives me that 30 seconds to kind of reduce my heart rate from 200 beats a minute back to a bit more normal and take away that bit of stress and anxiety. And that's all an elevator pitch is. It's nothing more, nothing less. And you can have as many as you need depending on the audience. Is that helpful, Claire?
Yeah, sometimes like it depends on who I'm talking to as well. I change how I communicate with them, and I also will amend my elevator pitch to who's sitting in front of me. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. Absolutely,
totally. There's no right or wrong to this. This is the thing with it. It's a formula. It's who you are, where you're from, what you do, depending on your audience. And that's what happens in sales. So if we're looking at a sales process, to me, a sales process is the skeleton of your body, right? So if you've got a sales process, whatever that wants to be, it's the skeleton, right? That sales process, then you put your mark on it. That's your flesh. So all males effectively have the same skeleton, all females have the same, but after that, things go different in many different ways. And that doesn't mean anything's wrong or right. It just means that's your process. As long as you don't have your head on your feet and your feet on your head. And that's where sales goes wrong. Because the sales process that a lot of companies use is they put the head on the feet. Because it's about me. Well, no, it's not. It can be about you as much as you want, but unless that client's willing to buy it, it's not about you. And that's the focus. So think of it that way, as a skeleton in the sales process. So the elevator pitch is very similar. It's just to get across, it's Claire Alexander, I'm from Africa Scotland Business Network. We help connect businesses between Scotland and South Africa. That's an elevator pitch. Now, you can refine that out a wee bit. That was me just thinking off the top of my head. But that's your elevator pitch, Claire, simple. Don't make it something it's not. And it's amazing the amount of companies I go into. In fact, I'm going to one next week. I'll ask this question and the sales team will not have an elevator pitch. They'll go on for 5-10 minutes, or they'll go on for 2 seconds and just look at you like deer in the headlights. Yeah. So thank you for being candid. I appreciate it. So this is the one for me. Understanding your customer. If you want to be effective in sales, the first thing to do is to understand your customer's business. So go in and speak to them. They will be absolutely blown away that a salesperson is coming in and talking to them and listening to them, because they fully expect to be pitched. And if you're meeting a client for the first time, you should never ever sell them anything, even if they're begging you. Now, I know that's going to be a bit of a bone of contention. But the reason for that is to take the information and go away and reflect a bit on it, and then go back to them with a proposal. And if you do go back to them, it tends to be that you will build up a more respect. We talk about rapport and relationships, and we throw these away very easily. It's really difficult to build up rapport. It takes time. It's a skill. In fact, I did a blog, I think earlier this week or last week, on soft skills. And you know, that term should never be soft skills, because they're really hard skills to learn. And particularly just now for under 35s, I see it all the time when I'm working at the university in Aberdeen. The communication tools that we have now means that soft skills really isn't practiced that much. We don't have conversations. We don't hold people's eye contact. We don't have a rhythm to a conversation. The rhythm of our conversation is either dictated to by Zoom or by Teams, things like that. The under 35s now text one line at a time. That's why the average under 35 texts 277 times a day. So it's one line and it's there, or if my daughter, it's one word. And my wife's going, oh, give us a bit more, and you just get another word and another word, you know. So that's the rhythm that they're into. So, but then when we bring them into our world of our oldie worldy back in the 80s, when we didn't have all these things, and we had what was called a tongue, and we had to chat to one another face to face, they feel uncomfortable in that space, just as we feel uncomfortable in their space. It does not mean that they cannot communicate. In fact, they can do the opposite. They're probably the most creative group of people I've come into contact with, because they know how to do TikTok, they know how to do PowerPoints, they know how to do tweets, they know how to do all that kind of stuff. My 9-year-old granddaughter does TikTok brilliantly. She pauses it, goes and changes her clothes, come back on, and it's all seamless. That's the creativity we're needing in business. And that's why I focus on it, because we need it in sales. So understanding your customer's key. There's 2 questions. First question I would ask all businesses is, can you tell me why your customers buy from you? Why do your customers buy from you?
Does anyone want to answer that question? Why
I can try.
Quality of service.
Okay. Okay.
I think people first buy the person before they buy the product.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Okay. But do you know? And that's okay. I'm just saying, this is the thing. I'll come on to you. I'll get yours in a minute, Ian. I wasn't ignoring you. That's what I get all the time, is either silence or they buy from the person. Yeah, they do, but they think they do. So coming back to the feedback earlier on, has anyone ever put out a feedback form asking your customers why they buy from you?
Yeah, we had it done, Peter, by a PR company, you know, a Black Forest. Yeah. As a secret thing across all of the customers, we'd done it. And then we benchmarked it against our competitors.
And what happened?
No, the majority of it was some of the comments that are coming up here, the relationship, the trust, the attentiveness, whatever, but also, you know, quality of service and responsiveness. You know, you pick up on what you're saying earlier, the things that you don't like in business, people not responding, you're trying to take that into what you're doing, you know. Completely
in. And if there's one thing you want to take away from today, is if you follow up with your customers, you're in the top 10% in the world. If you do nothing but follow up with your customers, you are in the top 10% in the world. Because that's what made me successful in sales was I followed up. I followed up in Canada, in the States, in the UK, in Europe, in the Middle East. Haven't done anything so far in Africa. That's the one I have to go to. So follow up, that's what it is. Follow up is not done. And Ian makes a great point. That's what the customer's looking for. If you instigate an action, then be respectful and follow up on that action.
Peter, just to jump in, I think one of the key things, attention to detail, responsiveness and relevance to the needs of what they're looking for are probably kind of key drivers. And obviously the quality of service, everything then kind of ties in from that initial kind of the responsiveness piece. I think is kind of key, certainly for what we're doing in Riot World. Obviously, you know us pretty well. So it's been a joyous journey, but always learning.
You're absolutely right, Andy. And it's about I know that Riot are understanding their client's business, and I know that's what Ian does. I don't know everybody, but I know Andy and I know Ian's business, and they understand their client's business, and then they go, okay, how do we fit that in with that? ASBN does something very similar. They understand their client's business. They understand the need to connect. They understand, though, that it's just not about connecting. We have many connecting networks out there who do little or nothing for you for 200 or 300 quid a year. I've been a member of them. We need to do things different. It's called cognitive dissonance when you do the same thing over and over, try to get a different result. That's the polite way of putting it. Okay, so understanding their business then follows in to that's why they buy from you. So Andy and Ian are both right. That's what they do. So they go out and they understand their client's business in order, okay, do we have a fit or do we not? The amount of times I go into customers that are chasing customers that are never going to buy from them. You know, Rourke Denver, who's a ex-sniper with the Navy SEALs, said, in order to see more clearly, narrow your field of vision. Don't go after everything. Go after what's yours. And we keep coming back to this about core values or old school values. And I don't like the term old school because it's never old school. It's only old school because people denigrate it. Core values, stick to your core values. Look at Tesco. Look at Tesco expanded into so many different things and lost their way. Now they're back being a supermarket. They've divested themselves of everything else. So stick to what you're good at. The one I want to really focus on is who are your customers? So I keep getting asked, we need to go out, we need to business develop. And there's a trick here that some salespeople will say to you that they can increase your bottom line by 15% roughly, and they can. And what they do is they actually get you to go and speak to the customers that you currently have in the database. So it's called organic growth. And all they do is they get the sales team to go out and talk to the customers about a different product other than the one they currently sell to you, to your customers. And there was a survey done, it's a wee bit old now, but there was a survey done in 2016 globally, and it found that 67% of salespeople only sell one product to a customer at a time. And that blew me away. And I checked out, and it's true, and it was by TAC, T-A-C-K. They did it in 2016. 67% of global salespeople will only talk to a client about one product at a time in a visit. So that means if you have a portfolio of 40 to 50 products, that salesperson needs to go back 40 to 50 times to the same customer. So what to do is before you invest in a business development person, is to look at your current database and actually go back through it and see if there are other products that you could sell on top of the current ones you're selling to some of your customers, and do that differently. And the other thing to do with business development is to take your current database and look at it and go, okay, who are my target customers? Do I have current customers that look like some of my targets? So what you do is you look at your target customers and go, okay, do I already work with current companies that are similar? If I do, then I've got a chance of working with them. If the target customer is a completely new entity to your business, you can go out and look, but the chances are it may not be to look at them first because it may not be a fit. But go and look for new customers that are similar to ones you already have. It's not rocket science. If it was rocket science, I wouldn't be in sales. And that's the 2 quick tips. And somebody will charge you 20 grand for that. And all they've done is kind of focus you in the right area. You've got that there. That's what a CRM is about. Use it. So recognize, can I sell my current customers another piece of my portfolio? And can I deal with new customers that I already have some that are similar? Can I go out and see other customers, target customers that have a similar setup? So this is from the Challenger sale, which is another kind of sales process similar to spin selling. And that tells you that that was done in 2018 globally. So you can see why sales doesn't get a good name in the market, because we've all been customers and it's not been a good experience there. 53% of people buy a product from a company because of the sales experience. What drives loyalty? Low price. No, it doesn't. Never has done, never will do. Price is in the equation, but it's not a drive, it's not a main driver. So when price comes up, what I would say is that if you've got a premium product, then the person either hasn't understood the value of your product, or you have not communicated that value to them that they've understood. What drives loyalty is sales experience. Now, sales experience is from right from the beginning to the end. So as soon as the customer picks up the phone with that initial contact, right the way through till the product's delivered and the after-sales service, that's the sales experience. So if we take a favorite, automotive, my favorite, very similar to oil and gas, but let's go automotive. You go in and the person in the showroom speaks away to you, if you're male, and talks to you, and then sells you a car, doesn't listen to what you're talking about, but tells you all, oh, this has 400 brake horsepower and can do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, and you're walking in with your wife and 3 kids, and it's got bucket seats and it's got this and it's got that. But then you eventually wear them down or them down, and you get the car that you want, and you drive it out of the showroom and you never hear from them again. And the only time you hear from a garage is when they want to generate revenue, either they come in for a service or you come in for an MOT or a warranty issue. That's automotive globally. That's not a sales experience. That's a revenue grab. And automotive still hasn't worked out that 52% of their customers are female. So sales experience drives loyalty. Kind of final, just got to touch on this a wee bit. So layers of tailoring. I keep getting asked, how does sales and marketing work together? So there's been a real push recently for marketing to be the leader and sales to be under your marketing kind of list. And for me, it's not. Sales and marketing are separate things. So here's an example, and this is again from Challenger Sale. So what marketing does is marketing at an industry level globally will let your customers know globally what's happening within their industry, be it by newsletter or sending out, you know, little updates on product info. They will do that on a global basis. Similarly, marketing will do that at a regional basis, whatever that is, whether it's a country-led or a region-led, and that's the company part of it. That's what marketing does to your customers. Where sales then takes over is within role. And what sales does is the salespeople will go in and talk to the customers about what's happening locally around their industry. And then the other bit is the salesperson will then tell what's happening internally within their business. And that is how sales and marketing work together, because they're both saying the same thing. That's an effective sales and marketing. It's not difficult. And what then happens is you've got from top to bottom and bottom up, you've got lines of communication, because how can marketing write a campaign for you if they don't know who your customer is, because you don't know who your customer is as a salesperson? How can you write an effective campaign? They need you as much as you need them. Okay. And this final slide is from Peter Sheehan's Flip in 2007. He wrote this book. And this kind of tells, and a lot of you have probably seen that, you need to tell a story. If your website on the front page, you need to tell a story. You all, I'm sure, have wonderful stories to tell about why you started your business. That is the power of a story. It will then start, because we like stories. There's a reason why we read our children's storybooks. They like them. It's the reason why we now start telling stories when we're in business. How many people haven't been on webinars in the last 4 or 5 years where storytelling is, it's true. That's what our brains want, because we can visualize pictures. We now understand a bit more about how our brains work. If we tell stories along with visually do it, then it happens. We tell stories when we train. And that's it. Functionality is you just need to make it work. So it comes back to what Andy and Ian were talking about earlier on. Just make it work. I've asked for that product. You've said you'll get it to me in 3 days. Get it to me in 3 days. And then the form part of it is how easy are you to deal with? Is it difficult or is it easy? If it's one click and you can do things, why do we do it? Because we're becoming lazy. But it's easy to deal with. If they've got a product and it needs to go back, replace it. Make the decision. Is it worth having all the hassle, or if it's a small amount, just replace it and then work with the client. So there could be things around that. And that's the whole thing. And how easy are your products to use? Do you need to have a degree to do them? Make them easy. I just bought a bike rack at the weekend. It was great. It said it may take you an hour to put it up. I thought for me that could be 4 or 5. We're in for a good afternoon. I had it up in 40 minutes because it was easy to follow. In fact, my wife came out and says, "What, you finished already?" You know, even she was impressed. But it's about easy products. How easy are you to understand and to work with? How easy at the top are you to deal with? And that's sales in a nutshell. It's not difficult. Claire, I will pass back.
Thanks so much, Peter. That was really informative and intriguing. I'm sure our audience have questions.
Yep.
So, Peter, do you want to stop sharing your screen just so we can...
I will stop sharing my screen, yeah.
I know that design work is very gorgeous. Thank you to our designer.
Yes, thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions for Peter?
I do. Thanks, Peter. That was when you explain it like that, it seems so simple, and I guess it is, and that's the beauty of it, right? But I think for myself, and I'm going to get a little bit personal here, but I know we're in a safe space. the issue that I have with sales, I think, is around, I don't know, maybe this thing like you don't want to impose yourself on other people. And it's like, maybe, is there value in what I have to offer for this person? So it's a bit of like own issue stuff. Do you have any advice on how to overcome some of those internal barriers?
Yeah, is it of value? Yeah, that's a difficult one, Nicola, to do in 2 minutes. So for me, that's about coaching. What is it that you feel that isn't of value? Because, so what we do a lot of in sales is we make assumptions, right? And I think what to do is, if you go in with a process, Nicola, where you're not going in to sell, right? You're going in to find out about that customer's business. So therefore, you're not imposing on them. If you've made an appointment, they have given you permission to go and speak with them.
Mm.
What they haven't given you permission to do is to sell them straight away. They expect that. But if you go in and just trying to find out about the business, what I would say is you then come away and you, as the expert in that area, would recognize whether your product can make that client's business better. So it comes back to you being in control and not somebody telling you. So I would be putting my coaching hat on here. I would say that there's previous experience where you've tried it and somebody said this to you. The thing for it is the process is different. I would say I would teach you a different process, that therefore you would be more in control rather than going and trying to sell somebody, keep getting told no. Because when we sell, we're setting you up to be told no at least 8 times out of 10.
Yeah. I think on reflection, where that comes from is because I've been the recipient of that experience so many times, where I've just been sold at, and I feel quite sort of defensive in a way, because it can be so aggressive, and I don't ever want to do that to someone. And so that's where my kind of hesitation around just like selling comes from. But I totally hear you about just approaching it in a different way and thinking about it in a different way.
That's not sales. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's not sales. That's bullying. And I call it out. That's bullying. But by pushing your opinion on somebody, that's bullying. Sales is not about manipulation, and I hear that quite a lot. It's about manipulating the customer. No, it's not. It's about understanding your customer and seeing if you have a product that fits them to make their business easier or other things. Is that helpful?
100%. Thank you.
Got a question from, I'm sorry, I'm not going to try and pronounce your name, but I know you're from High Tech. Do you want to?
Yeah, hi, that's okay. It's actually Geraint. I just had a quick question for Peter. With regard to the managing and running of a actual sales team.
Yes.
I come from quite an aggressive industry where, as a salesman, you obviously get different types of salesmen. Guys that are quite more forward and guys that are quite laid back. What challenges, how do you overcome those challenges with dealing with different types of reps within your organization? Getting everybody on the same page moving forward, but still not trying to douse their who they are as a person, if it's the easiest way of putting it. Keeping everybody on the same page, but not having everybody as robots following the same hymn book.
And that's part of it, is to treat them as individuals, Geraint.
Yeah, it's very difficult, as you said.
Yeah.
You come from a hard-nosed industry, and then you've got to try calm down and soften everybody up. It's quite a difficult ball to juggle.
I mean, they've all got their own. The thing is, the team needs to come together. You need both of these in there. They all need to be there. It's just finding out what is it that motivates each individual, and trying to see if you can fit that within the team. So what is the motivation? So some will be money, you know, some will be wanting to be promoted, to try and fit that within everything, recognizing they've all got targets. Is that helpful?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, cheers.
Thanks, Geraint.
Yeah.
We also have a question/statement from Laura Pinker, Scottish Development International. The stage is yours, Laura.
Thanks. Yeah, I actually just wanted to share a little bit of a sort of I guess a story, which I think was really relevant to what you were sort of saying, Peter, about the sales experience being so important and understanding your customer. But in 2019, I did some work with Brands South Africa on just looking at how business was done in Africa. And the results for me were really fascinating, and just sort of one of the reasons for the research was why South African businesses weren't necessarily doing so well on the African continent. And actually the reason was that South Africans, because they've got a system of infrastructure, like legal systems, all of that kind of fits behind their business, they weren't taking the time to get to know their clients, their customers, etc. in Africa, and that's obviously where the research was done. Whereas like the research showed that someone doing business in Africa really wanted to get to know you as a person, to build up a level of trust. Obviously this was pre-COVID, so it was a little bit more face-to-face back then, but the research even went as far as showing that some people said, until I literally feel comfortable inviting you home for a meal with my family, I'll never do business with you. And the research fascinated me, because I think that it was so much more entrenched than just being a good salesperson or knowing your customer. And it really just opened my eyes up to the importance of building a relationship, like really taking time to actually get to know someone. And it might not just be on a business basis. It actually might be saying like, hey, last time you told me your daughter was sick, or how is she now? It's just remembering things that is important to someone else, validating who they are, that I think is so important. So I just felt it was something that would be worth sharing.
Completely, Laura, and that's what CRM does. That's what a CRM tool is there for, because we can't have it all. So just putting in that Jimmy and Sheila are having a baby next week, the next time you go and see them, they suddenly see that. Why does Starbucks put your name on the cup? For that reason. We feel that attachment as a human being.
Absolutely.
It's not just who wants a latte, it's Peter's latte, or it's Laura's latte. It's that engagement, and that's where the psychology of the sales is coming from now. It's more into that. I mean, we're talking just now, it's very difficult to do training. So I've got a sales training course that's recognised by Aberdeen University, and the reason I did that was because we have no benchmark sales globally, and it took me 4 years to get that through Aberdeen University. I'm the only one with that, only UK provider with that, that training accreditation. But the other thing that comes out is, where are we just now with Zoom and Teams? We can't do a lot more. So I've been working with the guys at Riot on a virtual reality classroom. So we now have a virtual reality space where we can take students into, they come in as an avatar, but everything in the workshop's exactly the same. So somebody 60 or 70 who's a facilitator can come in and do videos, can do PowerPoints, post-it notes, thing in the classroom. And it's just about, so yeah. The challenge you have, Laura, is that it's a hard and a long road to understand your customer's business before you then sell them something. So I recognise we have to have short-term gains, otherwise the company goes bust. But it's getting that balance, that pipeline of quick stuff going in with medium to come in.
Thanks, Laura. We've now got a question from Catherine at backabuddy.coza, Africa's crowdfunding platform.
Thanks, Claire. Peter, I'm listening with interest here at your presentation, and also what you said now, Laura, also sort of hit home. But a challenge I have with with that is the authenticity part. So I have seen many salespeople, you know, yes, they're trying to get to know me, but I can immediately see straight through the tactic in terms of you don't really care about my family, but thanks for asking, and jotting down that my birthday is on the 7th of January, that, you know, the automated email I get on my Standard Bank. And it's very difficult to build true relationship with many people. Some people have a gift, a networking gift. So, I mean, I automatically think of Claire and Nicola, you know, it's in their personalities to network and to really genuinely be interested in people, but it's not really a skill that many people have. And just, yeah, your advice on I suppose improving at that, and really being authentic in terms of your want and interest in that person outside of the business that they can bring you, and how to bring them.
This is the challenge. So going back to understanding you have to be authentic. So you have to, they have to see you for who you are. Now, there's a lot of people I do business with that wouldn't necessarily clients that you then want to have that social thing. That's very different. So it's keeping that balance between what you have to be is you have to be authentic to you. So understanding you and what your values are, do they match with the client? So I've walked away from some deals because I've not been happy with what I've been hearing from the client. Now that's quite a strong thing to do that. And luckily, if it wasn't my customer, it was one of the manager's customers. He kind of looked at me funny until we got outside, and I said, "They're just not for us," and he got it. So it's whatever you don't. Sales is not an act. It's being upfront and honest. This is who I am. So that when, for instance, Ian and I go for a beer, Ian doesn't see me as somebody different to what we've been interacting at, because then that's when we go, oh, hang on a minute, that doesn't quite add up. How many of you have been in training sessions where the trainer or the facilitator, and then you go for a coffee or you have a break at lunchtime and they act slightly differently? Then you go back in the afternoon, and whether you like it or not, your brain goes, okay, well, I'll kind of look at that. And you have to, we're not all perfect, but just recognizing it and doing that in a nice way will be helpful. So this thing about being, you just have to be you, and it's understanding who you are. Does that kind of answer your question? I hope.
Thanks, Catherine. Does anyone have any, I'm aware of the time now. Does anyone have a final question for Peter? Nope. Going. I'm quite interested in the authenticity part in the, oh, there's Catherine having to leave. I'm quite interested in the authenticity part, and it's something we take quite seriously at ASBN. And of course, there is a phrase out there, people like me, and we try to avoid that. However, you know, because we want a network that's full of like diverse people, you know, with their own expertise. It has to be really like different across different countries, etc., to make a network work. But what we look for in people is authenticity, and if they don't have it, we're really reluctant to take them on as a member. So I was just wondering if you have anything just to close on authenticity in the sales process.
So so it comes back, Claire, to that I talked about earlier on with the skeleton and the flesh. You need a sales process, and a sales process is not a sales strategy. They are completely different things. A sales process is how you engage with your customer. What is it you put your salespeople out to go and do and go and speak to them? That's the process. So how do you talk to them? Talk to them in a normal way. Use your own words. For goodness sake, don't start using jargon. I hate this intercross relationship departments across 4 different tiers from the C-suite down to the such and such. If those are words that you don't use them. Because as soon as you start using them, folk kind of go, he doesn't say that normally. Mm-hmm. And it's as simple as that. It's about just talking in your language. One of the biggest things I do is when I win technical environments, the engineers talk too technical to the clients because the clients aren't technically at the same level. So I make a living out of going and saying to them, you can't say that. Can you talk to me? And if I understand it, then it's good. And when I don't, so it's about getting the language right. So just be you. Don't be forced or bullied into using words that you would not normally use because the client sees through it in a heartbeat. That's being authentic.
Interesting. Peter, thanks so much. And I want to also thank the audience for joining us. I know we're all like time strapped out there. So thanks so much for taking the time to join this masterclass. We've got one more masterclass before 2021 is out. I'm going to stop recording now. I'm going to wish you all well. Stay safe out there. If anyone wants to hang back, we're going to hang back in this session for another 10-15 minutes if anyone wants to chat while you're here. But if not, take care, and we'll definitely catch up soon. Thanks, everyone.
Nice.